Well, I'm here with WWE superstar Grayson Waller. Thank you so much for joining us on the West Australian newspapers, WWE Path to Perth.
You're welcome, mate. You know, I know there's not much happening in Perth right now, so this is probably the biggest news story in the last couple of months.
So it's funny, you are the most punchable person and annoying person in the WWE at the moment. Even my wife walked through the room the other day and said, God, he's annoying. How have you managed to develop this character persona to make sure that you are who you are at the moment?
That's so strange because she actually sent me a message saying that the shirt I wore the other day on TV was quite nice. So that's interesting. But for me personally, you know, I don't like using the word character because I don't think I'm playing anyone. Like, for anyone who knows me, this is who I am 24/7 type of thing. So I think sometimes, you know, especially the Australian way, we like a bit of banter. We like talking some trash. Especially the Americans don't really understand that as much. So I don't think I'm playing anything. I'm just being myself and being honest, and some people don't enjoy that.
It's really interesting. If we backtrack to when you're on Survivor, Abby Holmes is a face of TV here in footy these days, and she's a lovely lady, a placid sort of person, and she referred to you as an actual idiot. So this personality that you are on and off the screen has seen you succeed wherever you've gone. Is it just something that comes naturally to you?
Yeah, I like to push buttons and I like to mess with people. That's something that I enjoy doing. And, you know, on Survivor with Abby, I'm a very competitive person too. So anytime that I'm doing any type of competition, whether it was challenges on Survivor, whether I'm wrestling in a WWE ring, like, I want to win. And for me personally, to fire myself up to do as best as I can, I say some mean things, you know. It motivates me to kind of put the other person down and put myself forward. So it's funny looking back. I think you can see a lot of Grayson Waller in WWE when you look at some of those episodes of Survivor and how I was acting at the time.
What I find amazing is you're a school teacher, so you had a real life where you had to be the responsible one in charge of kids, and then you're able to do this as your other life. How did you manage to combine the two?
It was an interesting time in my life because for a while it was kind of like I had a secret life going on. For a long time, you know, the students didn't know what I did on the weekend, and it was hard sometimes to come in Monday morning and have to explain the black eye that I had or the cut I had on my head or whatever it was. But eventually, you know, as things progressed and picked up, you know, the kids kind of found out because what we do is a very public type of thing. But they were all really cool with it. I always tried to just keep them as very separate lives. But the dream was always to be in the WWE. The dream was to always perform in front of these big crowds. And I think Elimination Chamber in Perth is kind of the culmination of all of that.
So it's really interesting. Timing is important in life. I want to take you back to Money in the Bank because timing was quite amazing. You were 20 kilometres from Lord's Cricket Ground. It's the fourth test. It's the fourth day of the second Ashes test. And unbeknownst to you, as you step out to bag the crowd, as John Cena says, bring WrestleMania to London, it's 16 hours away from the most controversial cricket moment in Ashes history in 90 years, and you didn't get to use it. When you woke up the next day and realised that Carey Bairstow had happened, did you think, oh my God, why couldn't this have been now? Because they would have rioted if you had bagged them.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. Even like when we flew, I was hoping to actually get to the game, and we flew in a little bit late, and we were a little bit too far from Lord's for me to go and watch. But I was paying close attention, and then when it all kind of happened and kind of took off, I was just like so frustrated because, you know, I knew being an Australian going out in front of an English crowd, anything I say about Australia is going to have them very upset. So if I had that in my back pocket as well, might have had to have security to take me out.
They would have gone nuts, wouldn't they? Like, if you had said stay in your crease, the two prime ministers got stuck into it, 30,000 people screaming, same old Aussies always cheating. Like, it was the tension in that stadium was real.
Yeah, very much so. And, you know, I think English and Australian fans, as much as they hate to admit it, are pretty similar in the sense that they're both very, very passionate. And regardless of whether they think the situation is right or wrong, they're going to defend their country as much as they can. So it was nice to kind of get one over on the English. I know Wade Barrett, the Raw commentator, was trying to stick into me a little bit online because he was upset about it, thinking we were cheaters. But, you know, we're just very good at what we do and be a little bit niggly when things go wrong.
So you talk about timing, bad timing for you earlier in the year when you broke your leg. Like, you were just starting to get your opportunity, and then that happens. That was Anzac Day from an Australian perspective. How painful was it? What was the recovery like?
Yeah, it was an interesting thing because obviously when we're performing and we're in the ring, like, adrenaline's a hell of a drug. Like, I didn't even realise at first that I'd done anything. Like, my leg was just a bit sore. I actually went through the commentary table. And then when I tried to jump into the ring, like, I just felt my leg was gone. And it was super frustrating because it was at a time where things were going very well for me in NXT. The draft was coming up. I kind of saw everything that I've been working towards be taken away. But I got very lucky, and in a way, I think the broken leg was almost a positive because it gave me an opportunity to really focus on my body and my mind and try and get in the best shape I could. And then when I did get drafted still, I started the talk show. I got an opportunity to be on TV even though I was injured. I got to be in there with some big names like AJ Styles. And then when I was healed, which was probably 8 to 10 weeks, my first things was I was in the O2 Arena in London with John Cena, and then I wrestled the Hall of Famer Edge in my SmackDown debut in Madison Square Garden. So as horrible it was at the time, it kind of led to some pretty big things. So I kind of look at it as a positive in some ways.
The stepping stone that it gave you to work with really, really big names, so you probably wouldn't have been working with necessarily upon walking into SmackDown. Like, the Grayson Waller effect's been awesome for you. Has that fast-tracked your development, do you feel, because just being around those guys helps you to learn more?
Very much so. And, what we do, like, as much as it's important to be good in the ring, it's also important to be entertaining. And I think the biggest names in this industry are always the people who can talk. You can give them a microphone and they're just as entertaining as if they're fighting. So for me, it gave me an opportunity to get in the ring with a lot of people who I might not be in the ring with, Earlier in the year, I was in the ring with Shawn Michaels on the microphone. Not many people can say that can happen, And then being in there with guys like Cody and Edge and these big names, it gave me an opportunity to kind of feel what a real superstar is. Because I'm standing in the ring, I'm watching their entrance, I'm listening to the crowd. Like, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to go backstage and ask for advice. Like, I don't want to be their friend. I'm not a fan of them. I'm a colleague. So I find my ways to learn it a little bit differently, and that's experiencing how it feels being in the ring next to them.
What I love about what you've done is a lot of guys would rely on being the winner, having the title on them, all that sort of stuff to really develop themselves within the industry. You barely win on TV. You're going out there and making sure that you are hated and that your job as the heel is to get beaten all the time. So how proud are you of that, to be able to get over and make people love you or hate you, but love hating you, and not have to have the win-loss element of the industry to be successful?
I'll be like, I'm not necessarily proud of it. I don't think being proud of losing so many matches, especially big name matches, is a good thing. It's very frustrating for me. At times I've had opportunities for championships in big positions, and it seems like every time I get that big opportunity, like, I just miss out. But for me personally, it kind of drives me a little bit because I want it more. I wasn't handed things. I wasn't handed opportunities like some guys are. I've had to work for everything that I've gotten, and I'm going to continue to do that. And I think it just means that when I do finally get that big win, which I'm looking at Elimination Chamber in Perth right now, like, to get that big win in front of that crowd, like, that means something. And maybe that's what my story was supposed to be. Maybe I was supposed to, wait until this opportunity where it's the biggest show in Australian wrestling history and I get to be the name that kind of comes out of that. So I'm not proud of the fact that, my win-loss record isn't the best, but I am proud of the fact that regardless of that, I have performed well, and I think people don't even know my win-loss record. Like, if you ask more people, I'm so entertaining on the mic, I'm so entertaining in the ring that stuff doesn't matter at times to them.
So coming to Australia, how will you approach this crowd? Are you going to be the Sydney sider from the eastern states who antagonises Perth, or are you going to be the proud Aussie who wants everyone on your side?
One thing that I've hated in the past is when the Australians come back to Australia in WWE and do the classic, I used to love being in Australia, but then I loved it when I left, and that kind of thing. And that's fake. Like, that's not me. I'm not a fake bad guy. I'm genuinely, like, not a good person, and I'm okay with that. My thing is I'm proud of my country. Every time I go out, I've got the Australian flag on my gear. I've got the boxing kangaroo. I represent my country with all my heart. Like, I really love being an Australian and being able to represent Australia on TV. So when I come out in Perth, I'm not going to come out and pretend I hate Perth. I'm excited to perform in front of that crowd. I've seen how good that crowd is. For that UFC show with Alexander Volkanovski, like, hearing how behind him they were, that was cool. That drove me. That made me I want that. I can be booed in every other state and every other country in the entire globe, but for me in Australia, this is my home. I'm in front of my friends and family. Like, this is a bit of a different vibe.
So I know you're a big rugby league fan. There's been some State of Origin games here. Did you ever get to Optus Stadium at all? Have you been to the venue before?
I haven't before. The only time I performed in Perth, I performed at the Perth Royal Show for 7 days. So it'll be a little bit of a different venue. But I've got mates in Perth who have always talked it up, and obviously I've seen it on TV. And as I said, the UFC recently with Alexander Volkanovski, it's a great venue and a great crowd, and I think it's going to be a big moment on February 24th.
So did you go to the MCG back in 2018 when that big outdoor event was in Victoria? Or so have you experienced it from a spectator perspective?
Yeah, I was in the crowd for the MCG show. You know, I was up as pretty much as high as you can get, watching down, kind of thinking to myself, how amazing would it be to perform in front of this kind of crowd? So it's wild that now I actually have that opportunity.
So from an opportunity perspective, like in enhancing your career, big PLE, like what does the day itself mean for you to be in front of 50,000 people in the millions around the world on such a massive occasion?
Yeah, it means everything. It's what I've always wanted. You know, I performed in front of 25 people at a market show. I performed in RSL clubs. Like, I've truly experienced what it's like to be a wrestler in Australia, an independent wrestler. So this is the opportunity to show on a global stage what I can do. And it's not just about performing in front of, obviously, the Australian fans that I love and like the WWE universe. I get to do it in front of my friends and family. They haven't got to see me perform for WWE. I get to perform in front of my coaches who kind of got me started here. I get to perform in front of my peers, other wrestlers that I've looked up to and that I've worked with. So for me personally, it's like a kind of a crazy opportunity to have people that I care about getting to see me perform.
We don't know yet. We haven't seen what the card is for Royal Rumble if you're going to be involved with that. WrestleMania is obviously coming up after Elimination Chamber. Is it a case of go well to get your storyline going, get your big reward on what the card everyone wants to be on, which is WrestleMania?
This is the wildest time for WWE, you know. This is like, we got the Royal Rumble, then the Elimination Chamber show and WrestleMania. Like, if there's an opportunity for me to be involved with all three of those, that's crazy. That's me ticking off boxes of places I think I belong. So for me, I want to be involved with all that. I think I should be involved with all of that. I think the work I've put in on the main roster in the last year should give me the opportunity to do that. But in my head, everything is Elimination Chamber in Perth. Everything I'm working towards is that. Like, Royal Rumble's great, WrestleMania's great. For me, like, Elimination Chamber is WrestleMania.
And we're saying CM Punk got announced as being on the card the other day. Everyone over here is talking about The Rock. Like, what do you reckon? What are you hearing in the background? Have we a chance to have him over here as well?
I couldn't care less about those two flops. I've said so many mean things about those two guys, and every time they're around me, they don't say a thing to my face. You know what I mean? So I couldn't care less if they're there or not, unless they're standing across the ring from me, and I'm happy to do that. I don't think Dwayne wants to come anywhere near me, so I think he's going to do everything he can to avoid Australia. And as for Punk, he did everything he could to go to Raw. He had the opportunity to come to SmackDown. He didn't come. So I think he took the better option. He stayed away from me, and unfortunately he won't be getting the Grayson Waller rub in Perth.
Well, look, thank you so much for your time. It is the Elimination Chamber, February 24 at Optus Stadium. Get there, get to Perth. It's a wonderful place. You might have to travel, but who cares? It is the last stop on the road to WrestleMania. From a PLE perspective, you can read all of your wrestling news in the build-up to this in the West Australian newspaper and at thewest.com.au. Thank you for joining us on The Path to Perth.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.